Jordan Menard thinks I am wrong about everything in all of life, all of it, from media buying to what is driving human behavior at the core. And I thought it was a great opportunity to have him come on and tell me. I'm kidding about that. Jordan and I
that was a lot of words to say that you're a Dodger.
Probably, yeah, that's true. We got Dodger hats. Jordan and I probably disagree about some things, but very smart guy. I've been in the game for a long time, and so I'm very glad to have him on the show. I will tell you, on this show, I consider my job to be primarily a teacher. And so I don't actually bring many people on very often who disagree with me because I'm not really primarily trying to bring out debates. I'm trying to tell you what I think is true. In this case, I have watched Jordan's content unfold for a while. I've seen some of the success he's had, and I've wanted to hear a little more directly about what he thinks is true as a way to sharpen my own thinking about this and hopefully yours as well. So Jordan is the co-founder of Instant Hydration, Monster fast-growing hydration brand. He can tell you more about the ins and outs of that business in a little bit, but he's been at it for a long time, and we're going to talk today about creative testing methodology, about the debates he's been doing. We might even get into whether or not humans are motivated by self-interest. Who knows? Who knows where this conversation will go? Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. But there's the voice of Jordan right there. Let's get into it with Jordan Menard right now.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me, man. I've seen a lot of these episodes, and we've been talking, and I'm stoked to be here.
I'm just glad you brought your Padres hat. I think you got to rep the team.
Exactly. I knew you were a Dodger fan, so I got to rep. You got to stand on your hometown team.
Do your part. Okay, as tempted as I am to go into the World Series with you, I actually want to start on creative testing right away. We're going to get to the debates you've been doing. You did one with Charlie T. You did one with Andre Lunev, who's a friend of mine, actually. And you've done creative volume, you've done manual bidding, and all those things. The point is, I haven't heard you say from the ground up what your methodology is. And I haven't really heard your full critique of something like I do, which is sort of launch everything in a manual bid, write and scale campaign. So why don't you, maybe to start, you can tell me what you think is true about creative testing on Meta, because you've got some really impressive success under your belt. And I would like to hear about sort of how you approach thinking about the core problem, which is how do you learn and scale what ads are working? Learn what ads are working, scale what ads are working as fast as possible. So talk through that wherever you want.
Yeah, so I think people that have heard me talk about this can attest to this, but I've been saying the same thing for like years at this point, right? And I think, let me give a little bit of context about kind of my career arc so folks can understand like why I think this way. But, I've always been really interested in scale with a K, as Jason Applebaum has coined it, right? Which is getting a single brand or account to, 6 figures a day steadily and beyond, right? And it started when I was the director of user acquisition for consulting.com, like 2015 era, 2016, and maybe a little later. I don't know. I suck at calendars. But that was the first time I like took an ad account, just pushing spend, scaling, and it kind of opened my mind to what was possible. And then I started an agency where I worked with some of like long form creative. It was like info, but it was some of the biggest info marketers in the world. Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, Robert Kiyosaki, Agora Financial, Tim Sykes, the Morrison Brothers. I go on and on. And then I switched to ecom, right? So I got to the ecom game like relatively late, probably like 5 years ago. But I still had that same, like, I want to scale stuff. Like, and so I built a boutique agency that did everything. We made creative, ran Amazon, ran Google, ran Meta, email, SMS, and really just hyper focused on, brands that are really trying to scale. And, we got Rise Superfoods as a client running their growth when they were doing about $1 million a month. And, we scaled their ad account from like 10K a day to like 150K a day in 1 year, right? It was like the fastest. And then once that happened, I was like, all right, this is all I want to do. And then the founder of Rise tried to steal my employees as a way to say thank you. And so I decided to go get his biggest competitor, Everyday Dose, and partnered with Jack, and shout out to the Everyday Dose team. And Mike, Ghost, Jack, miss you guys. And we did the same thing, right? And now Everyday Dose is just crushing. Like you see him in Target, and so really, really great things happen there. And then while I was there, I started my own thing. And so, this I've done this multiple times, right? This like really like fast growth in CPG. And when you are growing an ad account to that level, right, it's no longer about like one single thing that works. It's a combination of all of your systems working together to produce this result that allows you to scale profitably, right? And if you've seen my Twitter, there's what I call natural CAC, which is this number that Meta wants to charge you. And if you can pay that number, you can pretty much get like infinite customers, right? You can really scale. And so, I experienced this enough times to like where we'd find this number from like a blended aspect, and then we could raise spend, 300% and go from 20K a day to 70K a day, and CAC would go up $2. When you're doing that, the system that we found that worked the best, and I'm not dogmatic about this because like it's my opinion or I'm like passionate about it. It's because we tried everything, and this is the only thing that is like reliable for scale. And that's we organize our creative by concept, right? So every single concept has a batch number. It's unique to that creative. A concept of a video ad will be one video ad with 3 different hooks, 3 or 4. A concept for images would be like an ad that says like, eliminate muscle cramps, right? And so that will be the text, and that's the concept, but it'll have very different images, right? One red, one blue, whatever, right? We in order to make creative actually diverse in Meta system, like that copy isn't super relevant, but the visual, what makes up that image is, right? And so we organize these concepts with batch numbers and put them directly by concept into an ABO. Each concept gets its own ad set, $100 a day. And we have a big, I've been saying this for so long, and, Colin McGuire has now taught it to a bunch of people, scale it where it lies. So $100 a day, run it for a couple days, starts working, and you just increase that ABO. And what we found is that oftentimes that creative testing campaign will be one of the highest spending campaigns in the account, right? It's very stable. And there's some other adjacent benefits that come from it regarding like frequency and like omnipresence that we could drill into if you want. But I think, sorry, I'm so long-winded. From a high level, that's like how I think about it and approach creative testing.
Okay, scale it where it lies. I have tried this in part because I've seen you talk about it. I like the point. So there's a lot of places to go here. Let me. I think that's what you're talking about is a relatively common thing, but you do have a distinction there that is different than some people say. So it's some people will say like you should move your best performing creatives into a scale campaign or something like that. But that sounds like not what you want to be doing. From your perspective, you think in an ABO. So the eventual version. Okay. Do you do both?
Well, we have like we have other scaling campaigns. Sometimes those are manual campaigns. And we graduate winners into them, but we leave them on in the ABO and keep scaling the ABO.
And sometimes the ABO is the best performing campaign.
Oftentimes, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the point? I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but I'm just curious. What's the point of the scale campaign at that point? Why not just scale it for where it lies into eternity? And what's the point of moving to the scale campaign at all?
Because each ad set will get to a certain amount in daily budget, and we like to keep that stable, profitable. And we found that there's like a limit, right? And that can range, right? But let's just say it's 4K a day, right? With 4K a day, we want at that point certified winner. We take that into an ASC, and sometimes that ASC will spend 60K in one day, right? Sometimes more, depending on
if it's a manual bid. You're saying it'll range a little bit based on the performance of that.
No, I'm saying this is all highest volume, right? the range of manual bids is a major downside, right?
Yeah.
That's a major downside.
Okay. Um. So. Okay. But the scale campaign you're saying is sometimes a manual bid campaign, but sometimes not.
Yep.
So okay. So maybe I misunderstood you. So then. Okay. So you have some limit on this creative testing campaign, the scale it where it lies campaign, we'll call it the scale it where it lies campaign. You have some limit of spend per ad set, and that's just based on performance.
Yeah, and it's based off like I know this is a weird answer, but it's based off like a
No.
lot of feel, right?
Uh huh.
Like we'll find that in this ad account, for example, because this methodology has been I've seen this work in every single ad account, right? Like
Okay.
the one thing that is reliable is this ABO. Now, sometimes do we test different like with CBO? Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, it doesn't work every time. I don't think anything does. I really don't believe in a one size fits all for this. But that has been the most reliable thing I've seen in my career, right? And that campaign, and people like again Colin McGuire, Marin would all say the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the killers I know.
Yeah. Lots of people say that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think like, we want to get that to like a stable limit, but we have so many ad sets because we test so much creative, right? And CVO it isn't even supposed to have more than 70 ad sets, right? I don't know if I think they increased it, but it doesn't matter, right? We make hundreds of batches a month, right? And so it's like the only thing that really works at scale is that ABO methodology. And then what ends up happening is because everything's built up that it pays for the losers. If you look at the overall CBA of the campaign, super stable. All the losers don't affect everything, but they get their spend. And in a world where we're paying to produce that much creative, the idea of not putting $300 on a concept that I spent to make just seems like a very poor use of capital. And so, yeah, that's why we end up doing this with all our biggest accounts.
I think one of the better arguments in favor of that approach that I've heard people say is the notion that that the cost of the losers is pretty low on multiple levels. One of them is that you actually maybe sort of feeding the account still in some ways that are hard to see. But then another way is that basically if that is the cost that it required to get the total thing to be a much bigger number, then that's a cost you should pay. And I actually totally agree with that. That like if that is the only way to reach a very large number, then you should pay it, even if you've got some ads performing at a 0.3 or whatever way below your account. That makes perfect sense to me. Before we get any further in this episode, this is not an ad. I just want to say, please leave your comments here. Is Jordan right? Am I right? Do we have things both right and wrong? Like what do you think? Leave a comment in this video, and while you're at it, or in this podcast, while you're at it, go ahead and like as well if you wouldn't mind doing that, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. I want to engage with you there. Also, it really helps me. And if you like this podcast and you want to help me, it's a really simple thing you can do. Thanks so much. Let's get back to it. So then let me ask again about this a little bit more. I want to understand as clearly as possible what you're saying. So you said something else, which is like hundreds of ads per month, hundreds of batches per month for these clients. So let me ask about that. So if you're at, let's call it 5K per day in spend. Okay. If you're down there, do you turn around and advocate to the client like, hey, we can get you there really fast, but what it's going to require from you is a whole bunch of creative, and you need to pay X amount. Essentially, like, are you pushing really hard on people to create huge amounts of creative volume?
I don't offer agency services at all anymore.
Forgive me. I know you. I suppose in a past life.
Yeah, for sure. So Motif, it was always a question of what are your business objectives, right? Like I can promise you, like I don't love producing a ton of creative. It's expensive. It's hard to find truly great creative people. They're out there, but like it's gnarly, right? And so we do it because we have to. And so I would always have very realistic conversations when we would be doing like FP&A work with the brand of like, okay, here's what you guys are looking at for the year. Here are your goals. Okay, like if you want to hit that, you want to double your ad spend. It's like creative production needs to come up in the same ratio, right? Like if I always use the metaphor of like a bonfire, right? Like an ad account is like a bonfire. If you want to have a massive one, you have to constantly be feeding it logs. Creative is the logs. Some of them burn longer than others, but right, y'all. And so, I would always just kind of use that analogy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I think once again, I think we're 100% on the same page there. Do you want to just quickly weigh in on sort of creative volume versus quality, like in terms of, do you have any thoughts on that? People like to talk about that issue just while we're kind of talking about creative for a minute.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of false dichotomies in our community, right? Or like people they posit some like the reality is you need a lot of really good creative.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like you need high quantity of high quality creative, and anything less is just like a very it's suboptimal, right? And the question should really be like, how do you make systems that regularly produce a high volume of high quality content? Like that's where the discussion is.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've actually never heard anybody who advocates for high quantity say otherwise than that, but people constantly sort of strawman them about that. And like, oh, when you say quantity, what you mean is it's bad. It's like, no, it's
correct.
Right. I don't mean it's bad. It means there might be stair steps in how you get there. Like I tend to think that in the system design process, it's actually easier to build a system for volume first and quality second.
1000%. Yeah, it's not hard to do.
That's right.
It's so easy to spam junk content. It's hard to come up with new angles and new concepts and like actually do the work, right? Like it's but if you really want to scale to the levels that we are trying to push to, you have to have a high volume as well of really quality stuff. Like there's no way around that, because every creative dies, right? Like there's no creative that will last forever. And so you always have to have a roster. It's very similar to the MLB, right? Like you need a farm team that's constantly bringing up great talent that can win at the highest level.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually talked to somebody with some real knowledge who made that almost exact comparison of thinking about it like a sports team like that. I continue to think that one of the biggest advantages I have in the space that I am in, that's with my agency business, that's with the e-commerce business that I'm building, just the very, very beginnings of everything that I am touching, is my relationship with More Staffing in the Philippines. More Staffing is a hiring firm based in the Philippines, built off of their involvement in US-based e-commerce businesses. So they're not some monster all-purpose staffing agency. They came out of US-based e-commerce businesses, and they can help you staff basically any role in your e-commerce business. And the thing I love about More Staffing is that they realize, being in the Philippines themselves, being a bunch of freaking killers themselves, that there is incredible talent available to your business in the Philippines, and that you shouldn't just be thinking about how do you make the cheapest hire possible. Instead, you should be thinking the true economic advantage that you have in other parts of the world is that your money goes really far in the Filipino hiring market, and you can also offer your quality of life and your quality of business also goes really far by offering high quality jobs that pay well by Filipino standards in the Filipino market. You will attract great talent, and that's really the key idea. If you are, let me put it very simply, if you are thinking about hiring Filipinos as like $3, $5 an hour talent and just like assistant level talent, you're just totally missing the opportunity. Everything I touch, every business I touch is touched in some way and is meaningfully impacted by Filipinos. I definitely employ more Filipinos than I do people in the US. Couldn't be happier about it. My relationships there have been critical to what I'm doing, and they will continue to be critical because of More Staffing. It can be for you as well. Whether at any part of your business, you should be looking and seeing, just taking some interviews and see. And the thing that's so great here is More Staffing will also even guarantee you 1 year on any talent they put in your business. So if you hire somebody, they don't last for a whole year in your business, they will refill that position for you for free. It happens rare, but it happens because hiring is hard. So go to morestaffing.co/AF. If you have an open position in your business right now, just take the call. Just see if look at some resumes, take some interviews, and see if there's somebody who could fill that position for you there. I guarantee you your dollars will go really far for finding incredible talent, and it'll be a great opportunity for them and for you. It's a win-win. You'll retain that talent really well. Just go do it. morestaffing.co/AF. Here's a question for you. convince me that this is, I think, actually a very hard thing to sort out. Convince me from your logic that the reason that you have been successful has more to do with your media buying. Well, you might not even say it this way, but convince me that the media buying creative testing method is the thing that's driving the success, as opposed to just the creative volume thing. And that might be precisely the false dichotomy you're talking about. And so I don't mean to really pit them against each other, but like, here's what I'm really trying to say. It's feasible to me that what you're actually great at is thinking about the unit economics, thinking about the LTV profile of these businesses. You just referenced 3 supplement or like food and bev, high LTV kind of brands in a row, Rise, Everyday Dose, and Instant Hydration. So those brands can support a whole bunch of money. The natural CAC concept lends very well to that idea, which is that like you can actually add enough more volume, given the unit economics and LTV of supplement businesses like some of these are, like you say, I mean, just from a return on invested capital perspective, it makes a lot of sense to spend a whole bunch of money really fast. So
yeah, it's all based on like it's predicated on CAC to LTV, right? That is the entire model. That is the payback, that that LTV, and depending on how you look at it, what metric is your North Star. That's, if you do it right, that determines your CAC, right? So it's not like you just like, we're going to lose a bunch. It's like, no, if we do this, our cash flows will be this.
Yeah, that's right. And so you want to push that as far as you can, and then design the rest of your business behind that to support that. And I've actually seen you say that, which is like, essentially, if you can figure out how to make money at your quote unquote natural CAC, then that is the actual pathway to the most scale, the fastest. And so that becomes the onus of the CEO, which is like, figure out how to do your financial business design so that when you find that number where you're crushing everybody else. And I have a theory about natural CAC that I want to run by you, but I think you're broadly right about it. I would nuance it a little bit, but broadly right about it. But then the business operator's goal is to figure out how to make the business work at that CAC, basically, because you can get so much volume. Okay, great. So one of the things I wonder.
One caveat.
Please. Yeah.
If you don't think you're playing this game because you need first purchase profitability, you are playing this game because your CAC goes up every year. That's all I wanted to add.
Yes. That's a good point. Here's what I wonder. What if I took your economic sensibilities and your creative system that you just referenced, mass volume of high quality creative, and plugged it into my creative testing method? Okay. Which is just launch at a manual bid. And we could put that manual bid wherever you want it. But I'm not saying it has to be first person profitable. Like, put it to where it produces your natural CAC, right? So that's fine. Okay, so let's say we did that. If I told you that, what percentage of the scale do you think we would reach? And obviously this is a ridiculous question, but let's take it 100K per day and spend, that kind of core metric for you. If we did it sort of my way, and you got the creative and the unit economics that you just referenced and the LTV that you just referenced, but my method, how much spend would I get per day, do you think? Like, how much am I hurting myself and my listeners by telling them to do this is really what I'm asking.
Yeah. So
I'm not asking for a true data-driven answer. I'm asking for your sense of it. Like, I'm asking for you to try to weight how important the creative testing method is in this whole process.
Yeah. So the creative testing campaign will get you to a certain level, and then you need other things to get you to another level. And as you continue to hit these plateaus where you need to break beyond them and spend and build, enhance your systems and everything like that, there are different challenges with each of those plateaus, right? And I think a lot of people have seen this in their own accounts, right? The first one's like 5K a day. It's like easy to get an account there, kind of hard to get it beyond. And then it's like 30K a day, right? When you start spending $1 million a month, that's like this big thing. And so many people stop right there. Or maybe they get to 50, but very few people go beyond that, right? And so let's talk about some of the theory behind your creative testing, right?
Well,
let me just.
Could I get? I want to hear you say it, but could I get to 50K a month and spend on my creative testing method as far as you see it? It's 50K per day. Excuse me.
There's too many variables to just like, but I like.
But with your creative with your creative approach, and with your unit economic approach, and with your sense of where the CAC should be, like if I can find natural CAC, if I have the LTV that you're referencing, if I have the unit economics you're referencing, and I have your creative, but I have my creative testing method, Can I get to 50K per day and spend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of presuppositions here that make this question very hard, but to just answer the question proper, I would say yes, you can get to 50. No, you cannot get to 100.
Okay, great. That's exactly what I was asking. Is like, so you think the creative testing method is at least 50% of the way the value gets created there?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, great. That's great. So now
Kind
go
of.
ahead and yeah,
Okay, kind of. So let me okay. Let's kind of like fast forward this a little bit. Let
sure,
me
sure.
hypothetically, let me grant you that cost controls always function flawlessly, right? Now,
You don't have to grant me that. I don't believe that.
no, 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 no,
So
no.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do this. Like
Okay,
let's grant that, okay? Let's
sure.
say that cost controls always function flawlessly, even though you just tried to stop me because you know that they don't. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
They still ignore the ecosystem effect, right? Meta is not an isolated auction, it's a living ecosystem. Every campaign influences downstream performance, traffic volume, retargeting pools, bottom of funnel audiences, email list growth, abandoned cart recovery, and overall LTV, right? Manual or cost cap bidding restricts volume for efficiency, but it's the illusion of efficiency, right? It's short term precision that causes long term decay. Spending 50K one day and 35K the next because the CAC would have gone up or down or whatever, um, that is instability. And when you have a system that needs a ton of traffic all the time, manual bids create a liability. And you bring less data, fewer customers, and you starve every downstream channel that compounds volume, right? And then when you look at like volume volatility and top of funnel dropping, then retargeting drops, then email drops, then SMS lists shrink. And when you are really scaling into, 6 figures per day, multiple 6 figures per day, right? You'll see that that CRM is what keeps your CAC down, right? You have so many people. I use the analogy of the sponge, right? Let's say your website converts at 5%, right? Like 95% of people don't purchase, right? They're filling up the sponge. And then you use your CRM to wring it all out. It brings your CAC down. You get a bunch of customers. It's almost like Meta knows that your website is relevant, and then it's easier to scale, right? And so those shrinking lists convert worse over time. Retargeting costs rise. You're forced to back into expensive cold traffic, and blended CAC skyrockets. And then your manual bids start to remarket more and more and more and more because Facebook needs to get those cheap conversions to keep the spend going. And every dip in spend weakens Meta's learning. And so, this is a short-term efficiency optimization that becomes a long-term liability. Ecosystem health is the true metric of scale, right? Like real efficiency like compounds across channels. Stable traffic fuels email, remarketing, LTV, and those pull CAC down over time. And manual bidding just breaks that flywheel.
Fantastic. Thank you for saying that. I have two questions in response to that. Number one, why isn't all you just argued that you should make your cost cap higher or lower, as the case may be, like more aggressive?
Okay,
Because
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that
yeah,
because let's go back to the natural CAC premise, right? Well, the whole premise of natural CAC is that I can increase my budget disproportionately to my CAC inflating. So if that's true and you agree with that, isn't that on face defeating of cost caps? Because we already have a natural cap. Why do we need an artificial cap in there?
well, because you would set it relative to the natural CAC. Now, I'll tell you what I sort of don't agree with about natural CAC is that it. Well, I don't know. I'll tell you exactly what I think about this. What I think you're calling natural CAC is actually what I would call marketplace CAC or something like that. I don't mind the term natural CAC. The dynamic I think is happening. I actually put an episode into this. I should have sent it to you ahead of time because I'd be curious how you think, if you think I'm getting it, what is happening right there. I think what people miss is that Meta actually functions more like Google Ads than people think. In terms of Google Ads, right, is like the problem is that there's a limited number of searches for a term that you're bidding on, and therefore the value or the cost of the searches drives up to a sort of some natural inflection point, at which the market no longer values the click more than the cost. So an example of this I've used, for example, is like I've talked to some injury attorney lawyers at points. Like I just like ran into them on vacation. There was in a beach chair next to me, and I was chatting with them, and they're talking about their CPCs on their Google search campaigns. You want to just guess what their CPC was on their Google search campaigns for the categorical terms?
I have no idea.
It was like $150 for a click.
Yeah.
And it's for a really obvious reason, which is that the click is worth that to them. And Google search is an auction. Google, now we should never put it past big tech companies to be rigging the game in some way here. Like Google actually was sued for this, but the point is that there's an auction dynamic and a marketplace dynamic, and everybody sees that happening in search because we all know there's like X number of searches for injury attorneys per month, and that's all the searches, and so all the people are going to come in there and bid for them, and that's that, right? I think people forget that Meta is an auction for customers who have a certain amount of value to a certain amount of players. And
there's a flaw in this presupposition, right? Like we're presuming a false equivalency. Yes, Meta is an auction. No, Meta is not a second priced auction. Like
it is a second price auction.
It's not.
It is. Is that not true? I'm almost certain I've read that from before. I've certainly said that in a lot of places.
It's not. Meta is a Vickery Clark Grove auction, which charges it quantifies the value of an advertiser holistically and then charges them based off the harm to the other advertisers in the auction. Namely, they got that space, that digital billboard, if you will, and the other advertiser did not. And so depending on your relevance score, everything like that. And this is a big issue with manual bids, is that the bid is just one component. So here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's say that you are less relevant than someone, but you are bidding more than them, right? Like Meta views that as a harmful action to the auction because and so those types of signals, I do not think are good to send to Meta, right? And that's
what does a manual bid have to do with that? Like why wouldn't it have a signal that you're harmful to the people in an automated bid?
Because if the platform is bidding for you, right? Again, and this makes sense, right? If you think that Meta's auction is second price, then manual bids make a ton of sense because you pay what the guy below bids you in a second price auction, right? So you're ensuring that sweet spot. But if that's not true, and what I'm saying is actually the framework of the algorithm, then manual bids are just one component of a holistic value score that is assigned to advertisers. Meaning, if my relevance is low, but my bid is high, I'm signaling to Meta spam.
And so you think that harms the account?
I'm saying I don't want to make any conclusions beyond that's not a signal that I want to give to Meta, right? And every single cost cap account I've ever seen that's all cost cap, the bid is way too high, right? And they have to be in order to get the delivery. And then when Facebook breaks, they blow through spend and then they go ask refunds. I've rid the lightning. I've been there.
Yeah.
The problem is, number one is it doesn't function with Meta's content retrieval system the right way, right? Manual bid's just one part of the process. And what they're good for is setting a lower bid at a something that like you'd be happy with. And then, that's why we use them for scaling, right? It's a good check back. But as like the only thing for an account, I don't think it's effective.
Okay, so this is super helpful. That's definitely interesting. I have specifically heard and read of Meta as a second price yield auction before, but I'm really fascinated. I'm immediately googling this. I need to think of that.
Google it right now.
I did. Yeah, I see. Yeah, the second price auction thing is actually a relatively small part of why I am a fan of manual bids. But I still don't understand how it would be the case that if you're launching a bunch of ads, that the manual bid would have anything to do with sending a signal to Meta about your ad relevance.
Maybe it doesn't. It's just it's a thought that I have. I also don't think that like okay, let's grant that it doesn't do that, right?
Sure.
The ecosystem effect is still the biggest problem, right? Because
so come back to that. So here was my response to that, which was, Okay, so let's take a target row ask because it's just easy to use the number. Oh, we'll use a bid cap, which is what I prefer. Bid cap and target row ask. Okay, so we'll take a bid cap and we'll just make up numbers and say, let's say I have $100 bid cap on 7-day click. Okay, and I hear everything you're saying, Jordan. I'm like, you're right. I need to feed more consistent spend. I need to build my lists. I need to get the impressions. I need to do all those things. I want to maintain some level of spend, right? Something like that. And I start to get less spend because of that. And my CAC goes down with it, right? Or my CAC stays the same. And if I increase my bid cap, my CAC goes up. Like just it does the thing that it's supposed to do. Like you said, we'll assume it's working perfectly for this. Okay. So why don't I hear everything you're saying, which is the ecosystem effect, means you have to keep spending to make money. Okay. And say, fine, I'm going to raise my bid cap to $120. Like you're right, Jordan. I need to spend more money. What? Because I've heard this argument a lot of times. People conflate. I think this is another false dichotomy people do a lot. People conflate the idea of manual bid with some CAC price in their heads, which is whatever. It's like I don't care. I mean, if you have
well, it's a cost per result bid, right? So it makes sense that way.
No. What I mean is they conflate it with the idea of bidding for efficiency, not for scale, and they have this idea in their head that means that you only care about efficiency and not scale at all. And I just don't think that's true. Like if I hear everything you're saying and I want more scale and I can afford it and I have that creative system, why not just raise the bid cap and still use manual bids?
Because I don't. Why would I? Like what value add is that, right? And again,
because there's still some threshold at which you would rather keep the money than spend it. That's the value it adds.
Yeah, but that's
one of us.
That's what the budget does, right?
Yeah, but except that the in your system that you described to me, the budget now requires a human being to go make data decisions about the flexing and the scaling up and down of budgets at a system that you just described as having hundreds of pieces of creative per week or whatever, So it becomes so complex that basically, and I mean this literally, no human can reasonably make decisions in that system without being, and that includes me. It's not about who's good or bad. I'm just saying people are making these decisions based off of nonsense statistical principles. It's like yesterday it was performing better, so they start scaling it up, and whatever. And I bet you are less prone to those kinds of biases than others. You've been in the game for a long time, but I watch so many, I look at so many accounts where it's like some ad got turned off because it had 2 bad days or whatever. It's just like, come on, there's no sense of small sample noise. There's all these different things. So if I have a manual bid, I could say there's some threshold, and I bet this is true even for you. There's some threshold at which you'd rather pocket the money than spend it, where it's actually a cost center if I spend it on the ad. And if that is the threshold, fine, that's the threshold. But you want Meta to go flex as much money as possible under that threshold as possible, and that if you can't hit that threshold, suppress that. That's the reason why you'd still use it.
Yeah. I see. I don't think that addresses the ecosystem effect of let's grant that it works perfectly, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're saying hypothetically we would save X amount of dollars and we would have a higher contribution margin percentage, or maybe you're even trying to say we would have net more contribution margin by spending less.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Okay. So
or by spending more faster, actually. Or because you have that threshold and Meta can go whoop, that ad is ripping, go scale it. So I don't think it's just an efficiency mechanism.
Sure.
I actually,
adding the concept that adding a constraint would scale more than no constraint, I think is logically on face. We can dismiss that.
But you don't want more scale unless it is at a certain cost.
I understand. So again, let's grant that Meta's cost controls function as they're designed, right? I'll grant that. We know that's not true, which is a whole nother argument, right?
Sort of.
Well, I mean, another way I could ask it is how many spend reimbursements have you had to ask for?
3 ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Probably more, but it's something, right? It all manual bids break, right? They do, and so
there's a solution to that. But yeah,
even if we grant that they function how they're supposed to, which, again, not true, it still doesn't take into account what I'm talking about with the ecosystem. Right? In Meta's ecosystem, efficiency isn't how many levers you pull, it's how fast your system learns. Manual bidding, you are putting a static number in response to an auction that's changing all the time. And so by the time you respond and make an optimization, by nature, you're already behind. On top of that, the biggest thing is that how do you you stop the flywheel when you cut traffic. You get less email, you get less. And so over time, that is a very real limiter because you are not letting the ecosystem flourish the way that it could if you had more stable traffic. And on a long enough timeline, that eventually breaks that growth flywheel and caps you at like 50, 60, 70K a day.
I don't. Yeah, the reason I don't think that's true is partly because I've seen accounts to spend more than that. On manual bids, perfectly fine. But secondly, because uh, I I just think my response to that is exactly what I said earlier, which is fine, raise the cap. Like if because at that point you're saying you'd rather have the traffic at a worse CAC than to save the money. That's what I hear you saying. You're saying it's too important to the system to get conversions and to get data and to get learning, and to say nothing of building your email list and your awareness and the impression matter. I actually agree with that. Like, and this is, I think, the mistake people who sort of listen to somebody like me might make, which is like this idea that like everything is just about squeezing efficiency. There's a lot more you could say about sort of organizations that handle this information poorly, I think. But at the same time, I just think fine, raise the cap. This is where I'd say like you're assuming in that response that you would just raise the cap.
If I raise the cap up beyond what I would want to accept, then the cost cap becomes functionally useless.
Well, so that's the point, is that you then have to make a decision. And I've definitely made this decision plenty of times with clients, right? Which is like, would I rather pay more for the customer, or would I rather have more efficiency with less customers? And that's true no matter what bidding method you use, right? There's going to be times where you have
what I'm saying. You're right. You're right. What I'm saying, that how you respond to that is the internal link between building a flywheel and a growth engine, or building something that is self-contained and limiting, right? It's like when you are, and again, I would say, like, how many accounts do you have that are spending multiple six figures on all manual bids, right?
Yeah, not right now. Not right now.
Yeah. I've never seen that. I've never seen a all manual account spending over 150K a day. I've never seen that, right? And so what I'm talking about is like, these are the methodologies that we utilize because we have to. You talk about how like it's so complex that no one can manage it. It's like, this is why I love when people say media buying is dead. It's like, you're telling on yourself, man. Like, you never had to begin with, And so like, I think for us, like, we have a very tight team. We have a senior, a junior, and everything's looked at in Northbeam on a 1-day accrual click basis, 7-day as well. We look at percent of new traffic. We have a whole SOP on how we're responding to these things. And the reason I know it works is because I look at the P&L,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I believe is that what you're doing is working. Like, that's why I had you on, right? It's because it's not like I think you're wrong.
I don't think you're wrong either. I think there's just a certain point where you can't get past that if you have cost controls.
Yeah, and in my experience, every time I have tried to address a threshold of spend problem by changing the bidding method, all it has done is made me less efficient at the same threshold. That's all it has done. It has just made it so that the distribution of my dollars has gotten worse at the same threshold, including trying the things that you're doing. And this is why I come back to what you said earlier, which is like, here's my most honest theory about what's happening for you, is that first of all, you're right about a really core thing, which is that spending a lot of money and designing your business around a certain CAC is really effective. And in fact, it's so effective if you can do that, especially in the opportunity selection game that you've played, which is like businesses that are built perfectly for D2C, right? Like a hydration business, for example, is something where I'm like, you made the right move. Like, that is like between the trend, but not just the trend. It's like about the delivery mechanism, the logistics of delivering a subscription product to a customer at a predetermined timeline. That is like perfect D2C economics. So I'm like,
everyone says I'm right now, but when I first did this, everyone's like, "Are you crazy?" Like, it's so saturated. Like, it's funny how.
Well, no, yeah. Well, and I think that's like, saturated, quote unquote. But if you're skilled in understanding how D2C businesses work, then it makes sense to me. I'm broadly bullish on D2C, and in a way some people are not. I think a lot of people like complain about it. I think it's good. Anyway, so there's that. But I also think that a lot of your success is because of what you're describing, both at the economic level, the LTV level, the opportunity selection level, but then also the creative output level. I think when I hear you say that much creative is being put into the ad account, I'm like, that here's my theory to answer my own question earlier. I think if you gave me all of those things in a business and manual bids, that our scale numbers would be relatively similar. I might have a little more than you, I think, with manual bids, but probably not a ton more, because I bet you're good at it.
You'd have more scale?
At the same spend. Because I think manual bids create scale by distributing each of your next dollars to the best place next. And I actually think that's the path to scale. That like the efficient distribution of your dollars, essentially by reducing spend on losers and increasing spend on winners and producing a lot of winners fast, that's how you end up getting the most scale. That's what I think. I don't know if it will be before or after you hear me say this, but at some point in this conversation, Jordan talked about texting his friends, having some group texts where they are sharing a bunch of things that are working and not working and what they are learning and post-purchase upsells for their businesses, so they can be grinding away together in their businesses. And the thing that's about that is that Jordan is on something there that's really important, which is that that having a community of people that you trust, that you really believe in, who are not selling you anything, who are also seeing success, who's thinking you trust, having that community of people in e-commerce is an insane advantage, an insane gift. And you can access that community through my friends at Workspace 6. Workspace 6 is a private community, closed community for e-commerce operators only. So actually a person like me, an agency person, or if I was selling software, I would not be allowed in that community because they don't have anybody who's selling you stuff. Instead, it's a private community based on Slack for operators, including in similar and slightly ahead of you revenue stages, as well as top executives in their companies, to share knowledge, share learnings, share software reviews, agency reviews, all those kinds of things, what's working, what's not, so that you can get access to the best information from, again, people who are not selling you anything, and you can have those relationships all the time. Plus, you can just have friends in the trenches with you who understand what you're going through in the weird world of being a D2C operator that we exist in. Those relationships really, really matter. So Workspace 6 is so valuable. You can get going for the first month for $1, and there's also no commitment. So it's really, really easy to get in and check it out for yourself if you are an operator or an executive in a company that is in the D2C landscape. So workspace6.io is the place to go to check that out. I love the guys at Workspace 6. They've been helpful to me, encouraging to me. They've been on the podcast. They've offered me great thoughts. They've recommended guests who have been great people in their space. I read their newsletter. So go to workspace6.io, check it out for yourself. If you need community people who you can rely on and trust to share your learnings, get better, get smarter, man, it's going to be really, it's going to, the relationships that you will build in Workspace 6 will pay for themselves and more. Go check it out today. Workspace6.io. I actually want to ask one more question that I've been thinking about recently with stability. And of course, like, you're doing this at more volume than I am right now. You may well just be right and I just may be wrong. So like, I'll just totally grant you that. Stability. Do you spend the same amount of money at midnight as you do at noon in your accounts?
No.
So why is that not instability, but day-to-day changes in spend are instability?
Because there's less demand at midnight than there is at 9 a.m.
And you don't think that's true day-to-day?
I think that is true day to day, but what I'm saying is that even if the manual bid thesis is correct, the practice of the ecosystem effect, the loss of email pop-ups, the loss of add to carts, the loss of site traffic, the evaporating of bottom of funnel audiences.
All those are true at midnight, though. All those are true. Everything you just said is true at midnight.
That's true for everyone at midnight, right? At 9 a.m., like if your cost cap, if the auction got $4 more expensive and your cost cap can't hang anymore, then you are missing out on traffic that you need to get if you were buying that same amount of traffic yesterday. So
but it's not. But again, you're willing to grant that happens at different hours of the day. Everybody understands that there is a difference in DAU, basically active users on the platform, at midnight versus at noon, and nobody complains that you get 10x the volume or whatever the number is, right, 5x the volume at noon as you do at midnight. But the moment you do that same thing day to day, everybody's like, oh, it's so unstable. And I think what I would say is move your vision of stability. Look at it at the level of weeks and months, and then suddenly it actually isn't any less stable. Like, it's just an arbitrary decision about which ones of things happen. And because what I really think is, like, imagine you're advertising to you and me, a couple guys who are working during the day, that kind of deal. You and I are the target customer. You and I are on a podcast right now. We cannot be scroll. I don't know. Maybe you're doing some scrolling, but we can't scroll too much right now, right?
Sure.
But maybe at night after this and after my kids go to bed, I can scroll. That changes if I'm advertising to stay-at-home moms whose kids are in school or something like that. And so what I have also seen with manual bids is that they massively disproportionately spend at different hours of the day instead of pacing more evenly throughout the day, based on very different ways for very different brands who are reaching as customers. And so what I think is that when it is annoying, by the way, it's super annoying to spend 10 grand today and 15 grand tomorrow and 40 grand on Sunday or whatever. It's really annoying. But I think it's the same thing that's happening, changes in DAUs. And in fact, again, I think there's a way to scale up and down spend with those changes more efficiently by letting Meta go chase those at different times and reducing it all the time. So
Yeah, I really like that thought process. I think it's probably like the best defense I've heard of this position. I think like, again, if that ecosystem effect issue is real, then over weeks and months, you will continually get a compounding opportunity cost loss in that traffic. And that's what we've seen. I would much prefer to run it your way. But dude, this is the great part about Meta, right? Like there's not one size fits all. Like I'm sure that what you're doing works for you and what I'm doing works for me. And I think it's really cool to have these conversations of different opinion.
Well, I'm a look for truth guy. So I appreciate that conciliation, that kind comment, and the way to sort of move towards me. The thing I'll say on the other side is one of us is probably more right than the other, and it may well be you. That's why I had you on for this. So
yeah, I mean, one of us is definitely more right. Yeah. And there are ways to tell.
Yeah. I think that's actually the hard part. There aren't necessarily ways to tell.
This like still lie, right?
They do, because people pick different opportunities, and so getting to the spend level on a subscription D2C brand is really
a lot of variables. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, but certainly, Jordan, I wouldn't go to your ad account like you're doing everything wrong, because if you're spending that much and so effective, then there's probably a point at which it's just not worth switching things around, even if I thought you were wrong. Like I just wouldn't.
I feel the exact same way.
Okay. I know we're just about out of time. Thanks for doing this. Let me ask you one last thing. We didn't get to your debates yet. Tell me, you debated the legendary Professor Charlie T about whether or not creative volume matters. His big counterintuitive opinion is that creative volume doesn't matter very much. I actually have really not engaged with his content almost at all, but that's like one of the little comments I've seen. You also talked with my friend Dr. Andrei Lunev, brilliant Russian engineering, aerospace engineer, PhD, who's gotten into Meta. He's a big manual bid guy,
yes,
and a big creative volume guy actually too. So just tell me about those debates. How have they been? What have you learned from them? What have you thought about them? What have you seen in the responses to them? So it's a cool thing.
Yeah, they've been good. I think, I think the first debate was good. Just like, I feel like everyone knows like the truth, right? That like, of course you have to have that much creative, right? And I think it was good for kind of like, that resounding once and for all, like, all right, like, let's call it as it is. And then, his response after that was wild.
I didn't see it. Yeah. You happened to summarize it, but I didn't see it.
Oh, dude, like, yeah, he would not. I mean, 85% of people voted for me, and he would not stop talking about it, like trying to convince everyone that he actually won. But then the second debate, I thought there was just like it wasn't moderated well. It wasn't. I don't think it was like really set up the right way. I would love to have this discussion with you actually, and I think the resolution model where we have like resolved. That's a really great way to test like how the argument functions in a real world scenario. So, dude, if you were up for it, I would be down.
Yeah, maybe I was, we'll put this out there. This will get people a lot of the way there. I think it's a really fun thing. Were you a debate? You had the resolution model. I mean, I've seen some of like the Oxford Union debates, some of those kinds of things online, but I was never like a debate guy before. So was that something you were comfortable with? I thought it was a cool way to handle the discussion as well, which is like it clarifies what the central question is.
Exactly. Yeah, I debated in community college, and I actually had a full ride scholarship to Southern Illinois to go like be a lawyer. And I dropped out when I found affiliate marketing that summer because I was just like, I'll never forget it. I was like, I haven't left my room and I'm just acquiring customers for businesses. This is the future. Like, this is the future. And so when I dropped out, Todd Graham, who actually still does like some of the presidential debate correspondence for CNN, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, I just need to make sure I understand this. Like, you are throwing away this opportunity for what?" And I told him I want to run affiliate marketing on Facebook. And he goes, "So you're dropping out of school, throwing away the best opportunity you've ever had in your life because you think you're going to sit on Facebook all day and make money?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. It
much.
ship. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, Jordan, we're out of time. Do you have any last comments that you want to make? Anything that we didn't get to that, or is this a question I really like to ask people right now? Is like, this is the thing that you've been talking about, but is there anything you're just like hot on right now in the D2C space that is just like a little thing that you think is like a big help? Whether it's media buying, could be totally unrelated to media buying, it could be about your supply chain. I don't care, but just anything super top of mind for you that you just with an audience that you'd like to get out.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it, actually. I think there is this new breed of agency owners turned brand operators that I think is creating this new wave of digitally native brands that will ultimately start to encroach on the incumbents in retail and start fighting for shelf space. And as I've kind of seen this trend and participated in it myself, obviously, as I went from like a agency owner to a brand operator, I think a lot of those guys are picking the right thing from the jump. I think a lot of those guys are thinking about it the right way from day one. I think, and I think that, if you, I think, think about the model more, think about your revenue model more. And if you have a bad one, be honest about it. Like, don't pretend that your revenue model is good when it's not, because it'll kill you. So I think that's something I've really been interested on. And, the guys I talk to, like in my group chats and stuff, like, we're always talking about post-purchase upsells and, all that stuff. And so, all those things are great. But if I can recommend anything, it's like, think right, like start thinking effectively, and let that be your guide, as opposed to just like flash in the pan, this comes up, let me go after it kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm starting a brand right now. Very much, I think a side thing is, I don't expect it to be my main thing anytime soon or anything like that. But it would break a lot of the rules that you just said. It's definitely not the highest monetary opportunity of anything that I could think of, so far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know, maybe some people are crazy, but
yeah, I don't even think like it's not necessarily about optimizing for highest monetary, right? It's like understanding your model, right? And
that's right. Yeah,
it's like play long-term games, right?
Yeah.
Like don't
yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Very fun conversation with Jordan, who came on to argue, like knew that we were going to be arguing, and that was really awesome for him to do it. I think some really compelling things in there. There's a lot that I took from that conversation. Even if I didn't quite take his creative testing method, I still do think that there's things that he's saying that are so clearly right, which is that there are CACs at which you can spend a whole lot of money. I did an episode previously about natural CAC to that end. There's a creative system that produces a whole bunch of high quality assets is really, really important. I love that point. And I love the way he's thinking about sort of designing the economics of your business to create the outcomes that you want, opportunity selection, all those things. And even the baseline idea that the sum might be greater than the parts, or the whole, you know what I'm saying, the whole might be greater than some of the parts. Anyway, that idea with the sort of ecosystem concept of how your ad spend works, I think that's really right, even if I disagree about the best way to get there. And there's a really good way to think about what's going on in your business that way. So yeah, lots of stuff that actually principally I think Jordan and I really agree on, and I know I'm going to be thinking about it a little bit more. Big thanks to Jordan for doing that. Go to instanthydration.com, check their Black Friday offer. He specifically told me to have you go look into that, and I think that's right. Go check that out. And follow Jordan on X. The link for that is in the show notes. If you want to see us argue some more, it's at Jordan Has Wings. And Jordan is a lot of fun there because he's constantly chopping it up with not only me, but a whole bunch of other people. Again, the link for that's in the show notes. If you're an X person, you probably already follow him, but there you go. You should subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Hopefully I'll have more conversations like this. Maybe even we'll bring Jordan back on at some point. You should subscribe to not miss any of those. I've got a bunch of other interviews lined up. I have probably the fullest interview calendar I've had in a long time. What do we have? We got Pop Smith founders coming. Crazy story from that. Monthly episodes with Patrick Cadu, my COO, about kind of things going on there. Nazrin Jafari's coming back. She hasn't been on for a long time to talk about all kinds of things going on in that business. She had her first $1 million month ever in revenue, which is amazing. So she's going to talk about that. We've got Katie Mamari from Caden Lane, monster business. So just all kinds of good stuff. I'm chasing down Jess Bachman again from Fire Team. Those conversations are always fun too. So definitely subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. You should email me, podcast@ajfgrowth.com, with any thoughts. You should, if you would like to work with me on any of the things that I am doing, you should go to ajfgrowth.com, fill out the form, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together. At some point, we're not taking on new clients quite yet, but for next year, we probably will be. So get the conversation started there. Thanks so much for watching, for listening. Thanks to my sponsors. As always, I am super grateful for them. I'll see you next time.